Rob Manfred once again opened up his mouth, inserted his foot, and sounded like a buffoon. I don't know if I got your take, Mraz, on the jerseys from All-Star Night.
I find it so just gross. I mean, the one good thing that baseball had, I really thought, was All-Star jerseys on Home Run Derby night and just be different in an All-Star game by representing your team. And the fact that we flip-flop that a little bit, I think is ridiculous. And now throw in the fact that, you know, it's hard to see, wait, what team is that charcoal? Is that black? The gold across? And that's supposed to be city representative of Hollywood, which made no sense. Like, at least the Pirates ones, you had, like, the bridges and stuff. It just, I don't know what baseball was even going for. I know the ultimate goal is to sell jerseys, but even if you switch all that up, how do you not just do a better job artistically?
I think that's all right. I mean, if I were to defend Major League Baseball's jerseys on All-Star Night, and again, the National League wore the home whites with gold font and gold trim, and then the Road American League were charcoal, so kind of black with gold and white. But it was gross because it was black jerseys and black pants and black cleats and black socks, so it just looked stupid. If I were to defend Major League Baseball, I'm sure part of their priority list is we get the most viewers outside of the World Series or NLCS, ALCS for the All-Star game. This is a chance to make money on jerseys. So if we just had our normal baseball players in their normal baseball jerseys, we don't make any bump off that. We can now sell X number of million All-Star jerseys. So if you're trying to make money, this is the way to market making money. And my guess is baseball has some say, but mostly Nike does this, and Nike's idea of cool is Nike's idea of cool. They've to me botched cool a million times over with many jerseys, but look, they've got their test audiences, they have their analytics, they have their data, and so maybe they see something where we here in these studios are mostly in our late 30s, 40s, and we don't think it's cool, but maybe somebody younger does. Emmanuel, you're 22 years old. Did you like, and if you did, you can say it, did you like the All-Star jerseys?
I didn't mind them. I was kind of really neutral on it. I don't mind if they wear All-Star-centric jerseys or their personal jerseys, and nothing about them stood out negatively to me. So it was like a non-moving-the-needle situation.
Okay.
D, just to back up one other thing, I think I also have less of a problem with the garish look of the jerseys if you just simply give me the standard team cap with like an all-star patch. I think the fact that it becomes head to toe, it's just ugly all over the place. We do, 4 different hats throughout the year? Father's Day, 4th of July, all of that. You're already selling so many different hats. I don't need an all-star hat now, too. If I have the blue Dodgers hat and Mookie Betts is wearing the white and gold, I know it doesn't necessarily match, but just give me something, about the original teams they're playing for.
I thought the color scheme sucked because Los Angeles should be, if you're trying to be thematic, blues and sands and warm beach Southern California colors. And charcoal and gold were lame. I mean, it was like Batman designed the uniforms. So the whole thing, it was like you were sapping all of the color and richness out of the host city. The point about being in LA is that it's colorful, it's tropical, it's beautiful. And then you sucked all of that out of it and made it monotone charcoal and white. It didn't make any sense. So it was like the Gotham City, all-star game. So I didn't like that. But also, I just generally don't like going monochromatic, thematic nonsense like this when you have individual baseball jerseys. And that has been part of baseball's charm to me, is that everybody wears their own baseball jersey at the All-Star game, and nobody has ever seemed to mind it. In fact, most people really like it. And so Rob Manfred was asked about this the other day, and Manfred said how great Nike was, how wonderful Nike's concepts were, and, quote, I never thought that a baseball team wearing different jerseys in a game was a particularly appealing look for us. And this is where Manfred runs himself into issues. Because, number one, I'm certainly not saying I'm the height of cool. In fact, I just had this conversation with my wife the other day. I said, scale of 1 to 10, be honest. How do you think I dressed before I met you? How do you think I dress now after 7 years with you? She said, honestly? I said, honestly, pull no punches. Can't offend me. She goes, you were probably a 5 when I met you, and you're like a 7.5 now. On a really good day, like in a really nice suit, you can get to an 8.
Wow. Don't tell moist pork.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not saying, I've got George Clooney style. But what I know is that I wouldn't trust the aesthetics or style of Rob Manfred. If Rob Manfred says, I never really thought that was particularly appealing, I'd be like, I don't trust your fashion sense. The last thing baseball should be doing is trusting the fashion sense of a 70-year-old curmudgeon that seems out of touch with everything.
And it feels weird that a 70-year-old curmudgeon is trying to give the fashion sense of what 18 and 20-year-olds are looking for, too.
Which makes me think that this is just a talking point to support Nike. Ultimately, you can't tell me that Rob Manfred and baseball people think it's not better to look like it's always looked. I mean, forever we've had baseball's individual jerseys on the field and everybody seemed to love it. Like nobody ever complained in 1996 or 2008, why don't we have all-star jerseys? Everybody has always accepted this is the way that baseball is, and most people really like it. But it was a way to monetize. And so now to rationalize making money, Manfred has to say, well, you know what? I don't think it was ever a particularly appealing look. And the reason this is a big deal is, does it ultimately matter that much if baseball's all-star have these jerseys? Not so much. But it suggests that Rob Manfred is once again so out of touch with so much of what people like about baseball or what people think matter about baseball. Remember when he said that the World Series trophy is just a hunk of metal?
Right.
Which is why taking it away from the Houston Astros after the cheating scandal wouldn't have made a difference because it's, quote, just a piece of metal. And players were like, what do you mean? That's why we drive ourselves. That's what our goal is. Touching that piece of metal to you is everything. It validates everything. It's joy. It's happiness. It perhaps carves our name in history for Cooperstown. That's why we do it, and you called it a piece of metal. And I don't think Rob Manfred thinks of it as a piece of metal. I think he rationalizes his decision by minimizing the importance.
Yes.
So he's going, yeah, obviously it's important, but for me to validate what I did, I've got to be like, hey, it's just a piece of metal. I think he knows that individual jerseys are better, but he goes, I never really thought it was a good look for us anyway. And that's where Rob Manfred is terrible at his job, is because his rationale seems so inauthentic or completely tone deaf as the leader of the sport. This is why I think they made a terrible decision hiring him. He was always Bud Selig's right-hand man. I think he handled a lot of the CBA negotiations over the years. He was like the numbers guy for Bud
lawyer,
Selig.
right.
Yeah, he was the litigator and the numbers guy for Bud Selig. And he was familiar to all the power brokers. He was the next guy in line, and so they were comfortable with him. But, man, what they didn't take into account was he's tone deaf or just really bad at expression. And you need a guy that's somewhat comfortable in that. Again, Adam Silver might not be perfect, but Adam Silver knows how to communicate and express some type of humanity. The players trust him.
Yes.
And a lot of media trusts him. Manfred sucks at this. He's just terrible at explaining things or showing just normal humanity. And this was another case. Everybody always thought that individual baseball jerseys in the All-Star game was cool. And here he is going, you guys are wrong. I never thought it was a good look anyway.
It's so spot on.
Come on.
I mean, Adam Silver actually has a lot of bad ideas. I mean, we might have a mid-season tournament. But you know why he doesn't get crushed for it? Because you're right. Everybody kind of just trusts him. He has a way of communicating so that when he has a bad idea, people just kind of go with it and say, see what happens. You know what I mean? Because there's a trust. Why Manfred needs to run from honesty? This comment made the All-Star jersey so much worse.
Totally.
You know what the perfect answer for Rob Manfred to say is, hey, we play 162 games in our regular uniforms. This is an opportunity to showcase a little something different. Maybe they don't appeal to you, but, the youth of America we're trying to target might like them. Give us an answer like that,
right,
where it's a workaround without directly saying, clearly we want to sell jerseys. I think people walk away going, all right, that makes sense. And then people forget that they wore garish jerseys. This is a 2-day-long thing because Rob Manfred said something stupid.
Yeah. And baseball is at a juncture where they need a people person to be the front man for changes in the league. And when Manfred was trying to get baseball back, remember a year ago, a little over a year ago for the pandemic, or I guess now 2 years ago, it was like he didn't get the temperature of the room. He didn't read how America was reading baseball in the pandemic. He just seemed cold and aloof and too business-oriented. Then the CBA this year, the same thing. Then the Astros punishment, the same thing. And now the jerseys, the same thing. He's a terrible people person. And baseball needs a soft face. They need a guy that you're like, you know what? I would have a beer with that guy. That guy I would like to talk baseball with. That guy feels like he cares about the sport. That guy feels like he's always been a baseball person. And he misses on every count. And this is the owner's fault because they wanted a guy they were comfortable with, and they just thought he's the next guy in line. And Bud Selig wasn't a people person. But they struck out so much with Manfred because he doesn't engender any faith, nor, you just don't like him. He's just easily unlikable. And baseball just needs not a doofus who's likable that doesn't know baseball, but just a better people person. It's kind of insane. It's, how we said yesterday, how baseball is really, it's just bad luck that Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, 2 generational talents, kind of don't care about being famous and they're both pretty boring. That's not baseball's fault. Baseball's fault is not giving people a front man that they can trust and like. Just imagine having a good baseball guy. He would never be the commissioner, but look at Jason Bateman. Jason Bateman goes to every Dodgers game or a lot of Dodgers games. And I would say, I believe Jason Bateman loves baseball. And Jason Bateman's a likable, of course he's an actor, but he seems to be a likable, genuine guy that if you happen to see Jason Bateman at your supermarket and he had a Dodgers hat on, you'd be like, yeah, what about the game last night? And he would talk to you about it. And then if he was like, I have this idea about the All-Star game. I think this would be better. Or he was like, I think we should do this with the playoffs. That would be better for baseball. You would sit there and be like, you know what? I feel like he's got the best interest of the game at heart. This guy loves baseball, and he's kind of smart, and he's affable. And you compare that to, if you saw Rob Manfred in the grocery store, you just automatically be like, oh, that's the guy picking through all the fruit. Oh, that's the guy poking the steaks through the plastic and, complaining because, the pimento cheese isn't on sale the way that it said in the circular. He'd have a ruffled shirt and rumpled pants, and you'd just be like, oh, he might have a Dodgers hat on, but I don't want to talk to that guy about baseball. He's just unapproachable that way.
He is, and I would actually say this, too. You talk about Gary Bettman and Roger Goodell, and these guys always getting booed every time they're public. Rob Manfred's not even worthy enough of getting booed. That's how basically irrelevant and unpersonable he is.